Everyone thinks your relationship is perfect. You post the right photos, you say the right things at dinner parties, you smile at family gatherings, and from outside you look fine. But inside your house, when the door closes and the performance ends, you are dying. And nobody knows, not even you sometimes. See, I need to tell you something uncomfortable. The most dangerous relationships aren't the ones that are obviously broken. They are the ones that look functional, the ones where both of you show up, pay the bills, raise the kids, keep the house clean. The ones where everything looks fine except nothing feels alive. And by the end of this video, you will understand why looking fine is one of the most dangerous illusions in a relationship. And most importantly, you will know whether you're living in that illusion right now. Because here is what nobody tells you. You can have a relationship that works perfectly on paper and be completely, devastatingly alone. So what actually happened? Let me tell you about Jennifer and Marcus. Married 14 years, 2 kids, great jobs, nice house in a good neighborhood. When they showed up to my office, Jennifer's sister had suggested they come. And that not because they were fighting, not because there was infidelity, but because Jennifer had said something at a family dinner that worried her sister. She said, "We are fine, everything is fine, we are just fine." And her sister, who had been through a divorce, recognized that word, fine. The most dangerous word in a relationship. So they came in, and when I asked them, "What brings you here?" Marcus genuinely looked confused. He said, "Honestly, I don't really know. Jennifer's sister thought we should come, but we are good. We don't have any major issues." And he meant it. From his perspective, everything was good. They didn't fight, the bills were paid, the kids were thriving, sex happened occasionally, they had dinner together most of the nights. They went to the kids' events together as well. They posted family photos on social media. But with every measurable standard, their relationship was functioning. So I turned to Jennifer and I asked her that, what would you say about the situation? There was this long pause. Then she said something that made Marcus' face drain of color. "I feel like I'm married to a stranger. And I have felt that way for so long that I forgot what it feels like to be known." And Marcus looked genuinely shocked. "What are you talking about? We talk every day. We talk about kids, about groceries, about whose turn it is to take the car in, but we don't talk. You don't know me anymore." And Marcus said, "I don't know you either." He looked defensive. He said, "That's not fair. I come home every night. I help with kids. I don't cheat. I don't yell. What more do you want?" And that's when I knew that we were dealing with what I call functional disconnection. The relationship works, but it doesn't feel like anything. And here is what happened to Jennifer and Marcus, and what happens to thousands of couples who look fine from the outside. Somewhere along the way, they stopped being partners and became co-managers. The relationship became a project. They were both executing efficiently. Kids, check. Bills, check. House maintenance, check. Social obligations, check. But connection, intimacy, being seen by another human being, that died years ago. And because everything else was functioning, they didn't notice. Or maybe they noticed but convinced themselves that it was normal. This is just what long-term relationship looks like, by the way. This is what happens when you have kids. This is adulthood, but it's not. It's a slow death disguised as stability. I asked Jennifer that, "When did you start feeling like strangers?" And she thought about it. Maybe 5 years ago. After our second kid was born, everything became about logistics. Who's picking up who, what needs to get done, we stopped having conversation that weren't about managing our life. And I asked her that, "Did you tell Marcus you were feeling this way?" She said, "Yeah, a few times, but he would say that we are fine, we are just busy. This is what having a family looks like." So I stopped bringing it up. Classic pattern. One partner feels disconnection. The other partner thinks everything's fine because nothing is obviously broken. Because nothing is broken, there is no urgency to fix it. And until one day, sometimes like 5 years, sometimes 10, 20 years, one of them wakes up and realizes that I have been lonely for so long. I forgot what it feels like to not to be lonely. And by then the gap is so wide that closing it feels impossible. What this looks like in real life. Here's how you know that you are in a relationship that looks fine from the outside but is dying from the inside. Pattern number 1, you can describe your life together but not your connection. Ask yourself this. If someone asks, how's your relationship? What do you talk about? Do you talk about the vacation you took? The home renovation you are planning? How well the kids are doing? Or do you talk about how deeply you know each other? How safe you feel being vulnerable? How seen you are? Most people in fine relationships, they can tell you about their life together, but they can't tell you anything about their emotional connection because there isn't any more. I had a client, and let's call her Sophia. She described her marriage like a resume. We have been together for 16 years. We own 2 properties. We both have successful careers. Our kids go to private school. We travel twice a year. And I said, that's your life. Tell me about your relationship. She stared at me. And I don't know what you mean. And when was the last time you felt truly seen by your husband? She couldn't answer because she had spent so long measuring the relationship by external markers, house, kids, vacation status. She forgot to check whether there was any actual intimacy left. Pattern number 2. You are close, but you are not intimate. There's a difference between proximity and intimacy. You can live with someone, sleep in the same bed, raise children together, and still be completely unknown to each other. Intimacy isn't physical closeness. It's emotional nakedness. It's being able to say that I am scared, I feel lost, I need you. And having your partner not just hear it, but feel it with you. In fine relationships, you are close, but you are not intimate. You function well together, but you don't risk being vulnerable anymore because somewhere along the way you learn that vulnerability doesn't lead to connection. It leads to being dismissed, misunderstood, or ignored. So you stopped offering it. Pattern 3. The performance for others is exhausting. You know what's telling? That when you are more exhausted by social events with your partner than you are by the event itself. Because you are not just showing up, you're performing, you're playing the role of a happy couple. You laugh at their jokes even though you have heard them 1,000 times. You touch their arm when people are watching. You tell the rehearsed stories about how we met or what we have been up to. And when you got into the car and you go home, you both go silent. The performance is over. And the relief you feel, that's the tell. If being on with your partner in public is exhausting, it's because your relationship has become a performance, not a partnership. I had a couple, Arjun and Neha. Neha told me that everyone thinks we are relationship goals, right? We get compliments all the time about how perfect we are together. How does that feel? Like a lie, because at home we barely speak, but in public we are on, and it's exhausting. That's the cost of looking fine when you're not. You have to maintain the illusion, not just for others, but for yourself. Pattern 4. You are waiting for a crisis to justify feeling unhappy. This is the cruelest pattern. You know something's wrong, you feel it every day because there is no obvious problem, no cheating, no abuse, no addiction. You tell yourself you don't have the right to be unhappy. You think other people have it worse. At least he's not violent. At least she doesn't cheat. We are lucky compared to most couples, and all of that might be true as well. But it doesn't change the fact that you are lonely. So you wait. You wait for something big to happen. Something that would justify leaving or demanding change. An affair, a betrayal, a breaking point. But for some couples, that moment never comes. They just stay. Stay in a relationship that's perfectly functional and completely lifeless. Stay because leaving would require explaining why. And I just feel empty doesn't sound like a good enough reason, by the way. Even though it's the most honest reason. So pattern 5. You have stopped complaining because you have accepted this is it. Remember the episode 2 when we talked about the silence feeling like peace? This is the advanced version. You don't just stop fighting. You stop hoping things will be different. You look at your relationship and think, this is just what marriage looks like after kids. This is what happens after 10, 15 or 20 years of marriage. This is as good as it gets. And you make peace with that. Not real peace, a resigned peace. I called it resignation in my episode 2. The kind of peace that comes from lowering your expectations so far that disappointment isn't even possible anymore. So why this happens psychologically? Why do relationships that look fine become emotionally dead? Because we confuse compatibility with connection. I talked about Jennifer and Marcus. They were incredibly compatible, similar values, similar goals, similar parenting styles. They could run a household together efficiently, make financial decisions together, navigate logistics together. But compatibility isn't the same as connection. Compatibility is about how well you function together. Connection is about how deeply you know each other. You can be perfectly compatible with someone and still be strangers. And here is what happens. Early in relationships, you are driven by curiosity. You want to know everything about your partner, about the person. Their fears, their dreams, their stories, their wounds. You ask questions, you listen deeply, you pay attention. But over time, especially after kids, careers, mortgages, responsibilities, that curiosity dies. Not because you stopped caring, but because survival mode kicks in. You stop asking, how are you really doing? Because you don't have the bandwidth to hold the answer. You stop sharing your internal word because they are too tired to receive it. And slowly, without either of you noticing, you become two people who live together but don't actually know each other anymore. There's a concept in psychology, it's called habitation. It's when something that used to capture your attention becomes a background noise. In relationships, habitation looks like assuming you know what your partner is thinking without asking. Believing you know everything about that or about them because you have been together for years. Stopping the active work of discovering them because you think discovery is done. But here's the thing. People change. Every year your partner is slightly different than they were the year before. Few years, new hopes, new wounds, new growth. So if you stop being curious, if you stop asking, if you assume you know them because you knew them 5 years ago, you wake up one day married to a stranger. And not because they changed, you didn't notice the change. It was happening gradually. And because you stopped looking, and in relationship that look fine, this habitation is invisible because you are both still showing up, still executing your roles, still checking the boxes. But the person inside that role, you haven't seen them in years. So the lie that keeps you trapped, the ghost belief in fine. If nothing is wrong, we shouldn't be complaining, right? Let me dismantle this. Just because nothing is obviously wrong doesn't mean everything is right. You can have a relationship with no abuse, no cheating, no financial stress, no addiction, and still be miserable. Because the absence of bad things doesn't equal the presence of good things. The relationship without problem isn't the same as a relationship with connection. But our culture has conditioned us to believe that if you don't have a good reason to be unhappy, you should be grateful. At least he comes home every night. At least she is faithful. At least we can pay our bills. All of which might be true, but none of which answers one question. Do I feel alive in this relationship? And if the answer is no, you are allowed to want more, even if nothing is wrong. I come from a culture where marriages are about duty, not desire, where staying together is praised regardless of whatever you are happy or not, where divorce is a dirty word and I am lonely in the marriage sounds ungrateful. And you know what that creates? Generations of people who stay in relationships that look perfect on the outside while dying slowly in the inside. I have had clients telling me, I can't leave, he's a good man. I can't complain, she's a good mother. I have no reason to be unhappy, and I always ask the same thing, is being good person the same as being a good partner? Because you can be married to someone who is objectively good and still feels completely unseen. And that's not your fault. That's not a character flaw either. It's the truth. You are allowed to want more than fine. You're allowed to want to feel known, even if your partner isn't doing anything wrong. So, what actually matters now? What do you do if you are in a relationship that looks fine but feels dead? And here is what matters. 1. Name the disconnection and name it out loud. You have to stop pretending everything is fine. Not in a loud way, but in a vulnerable way. Sit down with your partner and say that I need to tell you something that's hard to say. And from outside, we look fine. And in a lot of ways, we are fine, but I feel disconnected from you. I don't think you feel connected to me either. And I don't want to keep pretending that's okay. This is terrifying because it shatters the illusion. And sometimes the illusion is all you have left, but you can't fix what you want to name. Number 2, ask one curious question per day. For the next 30 days, ask your partner one real question every day. No logistics, not that did you pick up the milk or the mail, real questions. What's something you have been thinking about lately that you haven't told me? What's one thing you are scared of right now? If you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? And then, this is critical, listen, don't fix it, don't advise, don't dismiss, just listen and see if there is still a person in there you want to know. See if they are willing to let you know them. In 30 days, you are both showing up for this. There is hope. If one or both of you can't sustain it, that tells you something too, by the way. Number 3, stop performing for others. If you are exhausted by maintaining the image of perfect couple, stop it. Stop posting the photos that don't reflect your reality. Stop telling the stories of parties that make it seem like you are thriving. Stop protecting other people from the truth of your relationship. Not because you need to air your problem publicly, but because the performance is costing you honesty. And you can't rebuild connection. You can't rebuild while you're pretending connection exists. So don't do that. Number 4, decide what good enough actually mean to you. And here's the hard question. In a relationship that functions but doesn't feel alive, good enough for you? Some people say yes. They value stability, partnership in parenting, financial security, and compatibility or companionship. And they are willing to trade emotional intimacy for all those things. And that's a valid choice. But it's only valid if you are making it consciously. Not because you're afraid, not because you think you don't deserve more, but because you genuinely believe this is what you want. So if you are staying because leaving feels too hard, or because you think no one else would want you, or because at least it's not abusive, that's not a choice, that's resignation, and you deserve better than that. At the end, I know it's hard because a lot of you are in relationship that on paper are great. Good person, good parent, good provider, and something is missing. And you have been telling yourself that missing isn't a good enough reason to be unhappy. But let me tell you something, loneliness in a relationship is one of the most painful human experiences. Because you are not alone, you are with someone, and somehow that makes it worse. Because it means the person right next to you can't see you or won't see you. And you're supposed to just accept that. You are supposed to be grateful for the house, the kids, the stability, and you are grateful, but you are also dying inside, and those two things can both be true. You can appreciate what you have and still ache for what's missing. You are allowed to want more than fine. You are allowed to want to feel alive, even if everything looks perfect from outside. So if this video felt personal, it's because it touched a pattern, not a personality. Clarity doesn't tell you what to do. It helps you stop lying to yourself. This is season 1, the collapse arc. We are halfway through. Next case is already waiting. I'll see you there.